Hello guys, this is Peter from Veil of the Ages, and in this video I wanted to briefly chat with you about my understanding of the balance patch. So the way I will go about a balance patch would be to first of all list all entries for a given faction. So for example, for simplicity, let's take Highborn Elves and let's take the simplified small army for the quick starter. This is just to keep things simple. Then we can apply the same reasoning to the full-scale army from Fantasy Battles. Now, once you have listed all entries, what you would do would be to find a way to rank them according to performance. So, for example, you set a dimension with entries going from bad to good. And for example, in the case of the quick starter Highborn Elves, you would say that the Knights of Rama are performing relatively well, that the Citizen Archers, on the other hand, are struggling a bit. The Mage is fine, is okay, we don't have problems with that, but the Citizen Spears, meh, something halfway. So you achieve this ranking, and once you have this, what you do is you modify the point costs. So you set another dimension that visualizes the changes in point that you want to enforce from cheaper to more expensive, and then you slot the units, the entries, based on these two dimensions, something like this. This allows you to devise a general trend line for the army in question. At this point, you will need to do something else. You will need to take into account the external balancing. For example, an army like the Highborns might be perceived to be relatively underperforming in general, and so it should get a general decrease in point. Maybe some entries which are particularly good can still get more expensive. They may stay at the same level, but the general idea is that this line can move. For example, a relatively top-tier army, if the playtesting or other information show that, for example, the Undying Dynasties were performing a bit better, then maybe they should get a general increase in point, even if along a slope that's not as steep as the one that you would have for the other armies, for example. Now, once you do this, you get the chance to revise and redefine all of the concepts that you've used for creating these mechanics of the balance patch. For example, listing all entries. We only use the four entries for the quick starter army, but what do you do when you have extra complexity? What do you do with mounts? What do you do with enchantments? How do you treat combos? How to understand what to do in relation with what changes from the paths of magic, and so on and so forth. How do you make a list of things that need to be changed? Then you can also revise the concept behind the performance ranking. What does it mean to be bad or good? What type of evidence do we use for that? Do you use ETC information? Do we use external experts information? How do we weight the contribution of those? I'm sure that there has been some thinking about all of this. It would be really nice to know how you made these decisions in the staff. The next thing would be to think about the scale of the modification of point costs, because in some cases maybe plus minus 1 point might be effective. In other cases you might go for more impact and look at something like, I don't know, plus minus 5. In some cases you might want to use the scale of point costs not necessarily only for the balancing, but you might use it as a device to quickly inject some novelty into the game by creating some extra bold changes that keep the players who use armies which will not receive a full book anytime soon still engaged with an ever-changing system. Anyway, this is more or less my thinking about the balance patch. This is the way that I would understand it, but I would be curious to know whether this is in truth what has been applied by staff. If this is not the case, what else was applied instead? And from the community in general, whether this is an approach that would make sense to you. And I'm sure that you will have countless opinions on how to work on the performance dimension, whether we should have larger or smaller point changes. I'd be curious to know what you think of that. Well, thank you for your time and see you in the arena. Bye.